Hi, everyone. This is Dorothea Hendriks, your communication coach and presentation skills and public speaking. Today, we have a very amazing person as a guest. All my guests are amazing, but this person is a bit unusual because he's on a mission. And this mission is to help over 1 million leaders reach their potential, tap into their potential. Our guest today is Stan Peake. Stan Peake is an expert at unleashing human potentials. He's often asked to do keynotes. He did a TEDx talk on lasting happiness as an inside job, and it's received over 114,000 views. He's a very busy man. He's written eight books, six of which are bestsellers on leadership and entrepreneurship. Gems of wisdom that he's gathered from his over 25 years of experience going through 8 different entrepreneurial ventures. He's got a wealth of information at his fingertips and is a wonderful resource if you are hoping to move up the ladder of success as a leader and tap into your potential. Stan has coached executives, he's coached entrepreneurs, he's coached athletes. He's done that in Canada, Australia, Europe, and the United States. In 2023, he was named as one of the top 10 executive coaches to follow by US Insider. Stan is the Director of Development, Leadership Development, and co-founder at FSQ Consulting, Inc. And one of the 6 Canadian companies, just one of the 6 Canadian companies to receive the coveted Inc. magazine's Power Partner Award in 2023. Welcome, Stan. And I'll give you a round of applause, a standing
Oh,
ovation, whatever it takes. That is,
thank just getting through that bio. Thank you. I got to shorten that up.
well, I went onto your website and I thought, oh, there are gems in here. Like you have gems of wisdom, but there are gems, there's information in there that is just so amazing. That your personal goal is to reach 1 million leaders and help them tap into their potential. And that brings me to a question here. How do you unleash human potential? And you also talk on your website about unleashing business potential. What are some of the steps that you do to take that, to help a client take that?
Well, it's a great question. And the first step to releasing potential is to seeing it. I know that sounds self-evident, but the fact is, in order to see someone's potential, you have to be looking for it. As a coach, one of the most important attributes or skills is to remain patient and to be curious. So when I meet with an entrepreneur, when I meet with an executive, when I meet with a team, one of the first things that's a point of curiosity for me is, what is this person capable of? What are their gifts? And also, what is this business capable of? So on the personal level, I look for passion first. What someone is passionate about is going to be highly indicative of what their potential is. Because we're not going to be great at anything that we don't truly enjoy. So passion's always a big indicator. And for those of your listeners that are frustrated, well, I don't know what my passion is. Don't worry. A lot of us, it takes a long time. What's the precursor to your passion is probably your curiosity. The things you are most drawn to, the things you want to learn about, the things you keep reading, Googling, watching YouTube videos about, that curiosity can be the spark that creates the fire that is your passion. So those are the areas I look at first because those have a lot to do with our potential, even our strengths.
Mm.
Strengths are behaviors that we choose over time. And we choose those behaviors because of our values, because of our passion. So that's some of the ways that I really help uncover what someone's potential is. And as far as an organization goes, a business, my opinion, is just a mechanism of helping others. So when we understand a business, we understand who is the audience this business was designed to serve. What are the problems, the goals, the needs of this desired audience? And how does this business meet those needs in a unique or differentiated way? That is how I look at the potential of an organization. And what I love about coaching, by the way, Dorothea,
Mm.
is that sometimes you're meeting with founders and you see potential or use cases or ideas that they didn't even think of. They actually are on to something bigger than they could have ever imagined when you help them with shifting their perspective.
There's a lot. You've given a lot of information there, because I was thinking, what are some of the things that you look for? What are some of the steps that people take? And something that I'd like to go back to is when you talk about, you look for what people are passionate about. We often think in terms of passion as this excitement of woohoo, how cool that is, and this outward exuberance. In a business, when you're talking to the executives, the people that really can move an organization forward, that's not the kind of passion that you're talking about, are you?
No, and it's such a great conversation point to have, because you're right. A lot of people think passion is an emotion. It's joy. It's I love to do ABC. Passion a lot of times is what you cannot stop thinking about. So if you look at the founders of, say, and I know there's several different ones because there's several different modes, but if you look at the founders of cryptocurrency, they're not passionate about finance. They're passionate about democratizing finance. They're passionate about shifting the concentration of wealth, power, and control and putting a more level playing field. That's an example of passion. And that often leads people into challenges, even trouble. When you are trying to democratize an industry, or democratize wealth, or change an industry, or create a whole brand new market segment, you are inviting challenge. And that might be a challenge from the established players in the market, or that challenge might be no one knows what you do, and you have to educate people to even get them to the point of desiring your product or service. So, passion, if it's those nice feelings, is not very sustainable from a business lens. And that's why it's important to think about passion as, what problem can't I ignore? What problem can't I avoid trying to solve? That's a better way of looking at passion, if we are going to use that as a lens to what business should I start.
Thank you. I was writing some of those down, because those questions, what problem can't I solve? What problem can't I avoid? It's asking the questions, which goes back to actually being curious. I think Albert Einstein, there is a quote that he has about curiosity, but if there is a gift, and I think Eleanor Roosevelt, if there's a gift that they could give anyone, it would be the gift of curiosity.
It's funny you say that. I just had this conversation with a client last week who's in a very senior position in their organization, and based on their role and how many they coach, they're a leader to leaders in their business. So what we're spending time coaching on is their coaching skills. And we just talked about how curiosity is a superpower, because they're a very bright individual, but a lot of times intelligence leads us right to conclusions, which is a form of judgment. We just tell people what to do instead of working with them to find the solution that they are going to own. Because we all know, I mean, what are you going to own more? When you tell me to do something, okay, I begrudgingly do it. But if you work with me to own that solution, I'm going to go deliver it like it's my own business.
It comes down to time, lots of times.
Yes.
It's time.
Yes.
We don't have the time. Let's just get on with it. Time is money. So there is an interesting, that's a whole area of discovery and of working through as well. So as you're working here, helping people kind of unleash, tap into, open up, discover their potential, what do you find is the biggest roadblock that people face?
Most common, I would say, would be limiting beliefs.
Mm.
So what I mean by limiting beliefs, beliefs that people have, their inner voice that tells them something, or what they've heard growing up, and they've allowed it to become a belief, they've allowed it to become true in their own mind, where we tell ourselves what we're not good at, or what we are or aren't capable of. So examples, when it comes to someone's potential, when it comes to finding someone's gifts, I might ask a question. Have you ever thought of this? Sidebar, as a coach, I try to be careful about making suggestions. A coach suggesting someone go into a certain line of work could be downright dangerous. That could cost someone years, if not decades. So I like to have them ask questions, and then they can decide the level of emotional resonance that goes along with each potential door they could go through. But the point being, what if someone wants to start a business and they want to get into, say, the consulting space? And then that might, as a strategy, involve thought leadership. Maybe they're absolute expert on personal branding. And that means that they're going to have to write books or take the stage to really amplify their message and find more of their ideal customer. Well, they might have told themselves, I'm not a good public speaker, or I don't have ideas worth sharing. That's going to get right in the way of that business, because that's not someone who takes the stage. That's not someone who publishes a book, because they're probably too self-critical of their own ideas, or they tell themselves, no one wants to hear what I have to say. So that to me is the biggest hurdle. And by the way, your listeners are probably relating to that and wondering, how do I get over that? And the great news is that you can change any belief you want with evidence to the contrary. So if someone tells themselves, well, I'm just not a salesperson. Dan Pink wrote a book years ago called To Sell is Human. And they did a wonderful study across North America. And they found that only 9 to 10% of the North American population work in sales. However, the average North American spends 24 minutes out of every hour in sales-like behaviors: bartering, negotiating, exerting influence, trying to compete for limited resources like that one projector, or I just dated myself by using a term like a projector, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
When we are competing for limited resources, when we're negotiating, those are sales-like behaviors. And if you have those skills, that influence, then you're perfectly cut out for sales. You just might not have worked in a sales position before. So that's where we start.
Yeah, so it's your limiting beliefs, which brings me to the question. Right now, you're on the road, I'm going to say here, the road to success. You just have received so many accolades, awards. By all accounts, it looks like you're doing really, really well. Have you ever had, where did you start? Did you ever have limiting beliefs? So, because if we have and experience something, sometimes it helps us be more effective in helping others. What limiting beliefs did you have, and what steps did you take? Because that would be moving outside your comfort zone like it is for all of us.
Big time. And it's important to realize that imposter syndrome, which is a manifestation of limiting beliefs, really is ever present.
Mhm.
It's what we pay attention to. So, in answer to your question, did I have limiting beliefs? Oh my Lord, how much time do you have? I had a lot. And in my particular case, I pivoted from a health and fitness career before I started my coaching business. So 18 years in a career of health and fitness and wellness. And before that, basically a lifelong athlete. So I basically stepped right off the football field right into fitness studios and gyms. So there was a track record that made my expertise believable. I've worked out my whole life, and especially I started my first career when I was 21. At 21 years old, not that far removed from football, you look like a fitness trainer. And that's just, it's one of those careers where aesthetics lends itself to credibility, right or wrong. And so, long story short, after 18 years in that space, everybody knew me as a fitness professional. So limiting beliefs showed up big time when I decided to start a coaching business. There was even people that knew that I was a leader, that knew that I'd been a leader for more than a decade, almost two. And then I started a coaching business, leadership being one of the tenets of that business. And I got a lot of question marks. People even said, well, who are you to question, to coach executives? What does someone even get for that? And so not only were those beliefs in my head, I was actually getting those questions, even from people who I had a good relationship with. And as I mentioned, thought leadership is an area that is important in the coaching space. Not essential, but certainly important. A lot of people have a coach who is there to coach. Pure coaching is listening, asking questions, helping people come to their own conclusions. Massive value in that. There's a lot of other people that want to coach that can help them get from point A to point B, and they want a coach who's done it before, so that that coach can go from coach to giving advice or consulting at times. And nobody really saw a point B that I'd achieved that they wanted to personally achieve, even though I'd already sold a business. I didn't sell that business for $1 billion. That would make sense. So I had a ton of limiting beliefs and even pushback, applying to speak at conferences, even going to the actual speaking itself. Every step of the business, I had limiting beliefs. And some of them even got reinforced when the financial results of the business were not what I wanted them to be in the first several years. So I could go on, but it's important to realize that if you have limiting beliefs, don't let them get in the way, because people that you look up to, people that you think are way more successful than you, still have limiting beliefs, still struggle with confidence from time to time, and just as importantly, still fail. I would argue I fail more than almost anyone in your audience who's listening to this. And the reason is I try more things. I step up to the plate. I try new things. I try old things, and I am putting myself out there. So if you want to go far, if your aspirations are you want to be taking the stage, you got to develop your resiliency muscle, which means you have to come face to face with adversity and failure and learn how to deal with it.
So what you've done is you've stepped out of your comfort zone, that so-called comfort zone, uh, many, many, many times. And you've, from the sounds of it, you've pushed yourself out, you've seen something, and you've gone beyond the fear.
I would put it a different way. Once in a while, I step in my comfort zone. I pretty much live in my discomfort zone.
Ah, okay. All right. That's an interesting way of looking at it. And so what is your comfort zone?
My comfort zone is my family, first and foremost, my friends. Like I can't push myself. I can't challenge myself. I can't put myself out there all the time, risking failure, risking criticism, if I don't have a place to come back to that's a safe place. Don't get me wrong, my family loves to criticize me too, but that's the that's the little stuff, right? So yeah, that is absolutely my comfort zone. And then there's also just the familiar. When things aren't going your way, when your life seems to be going in like nothing seems to be working, you need a few what I call pillars that may not be your comfort zone, but things you can go to regain control. For me, those are things like exercise, time outdoors. Exercise is clearly outside of the comfort zone for most people, but at the end of that, I've overcome a challenge. I'm empowered. So I've got a comfort zone, that's my family, and I've got pillars that I can go to recenter myself and get back out there and face what might be on the other side of my comfort zone.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting listening to you, and it brings up a question here that when you're talking about a place that you go and a place to get yourself, I guess, feeling like you're in control. I was reading something by Wayne Dyer, a motivational speaker and writer, and he said that we have a very powerful mind that can make anything happen as long as we keep ourselves centered. So I'm going to say your family, doing fitness, these things that help you feel some kind of control, give you a sense of calm, they are what keep you centered. Would you say that's true? And what else do you do to keep yourself centered?
That is absolutely true. And the other thing is, in order to be centered, we have to be able to steer the ship, so to speak, or steer the vehicle. See, what a lot of people don't realize is we have between 86 billion and 100 billion neurons. That's powerful. It's so much power, in fact, that most people don't know how to use it. The equivalent, the analogy I would give is anyone out there that has a 14-year-old, or if you can remember when you first learned to drive, imagine if you learned to drive on a turbo Ferrari. That is way more power than a 14-year-old needs or knows how to use. And that's how much computing power we have at our fingertips that we don't know how to use. So the key is focus. In fact, without getting too deep in the neuroscience, there's a specialized set of cells in our brain called the reticular activating system. That set of cells exists to help us find what we're trying to find. Quick example, we already use cars. You purchase a new vehicle. You go get a Ford Explorer, whatever you get, and then you drive it off the lot. And what do you see on the way home? A whole bunch more Ford Explorers. Now, that's not because millions of people bought the same vehicle you at the same moment. It's because your focus shifted, even imperceptibly. Your subconscious mind is now aware of something that it didn't care about in the past. So the fact that you see way more Ford Explorers is just you brought something ambiguous or arbitrary into your awareness. Now you see it all the time. Now imagine if we use that power intentionally. Imagine as an entrepreneur, if you were clear on what you were trying to find, like opportunities in the marketplace, or your ideal customer, or the right person to hire. These are ways we can harness that power, but to Dyer's point, it requires being focused and centered. My last piece on focus, whatever you look for, you're going to find. So the problem is a lot of people are looking for what they don't want to see. It's like worrying. I broke my back mountain biking, and there's a rule in mountain biking: if you don't want to look at something, you don't want to hit something, don't look at it. I ended up looking off the side of a bridge. That's where my bike tire went. I flipped off the bridge. I landed upside down head first, breaking 2 vertebrae in my back. So look for what you want. Don't stare at what you don't want. If we focus on problems, we're going to see more of them, and they're going to seem more severe. If we focus on opportunities, we're going to start to see them before other people do, which is a massive competitive advantage for anyone in business.
And it's interesting. I think I so agree that looking for the opportunity, being curious, looking for what's out there. But we live in a world where we are bombarded with negativity. You look at the news, you listen to the news, it's negative, negative. You talk with some of your friends, some associates, and they, oh my goodness, the weather's bad, the market is down. Something is going to happen. The chances of having a conversation that are uplifting, buoyant, and moving forward with a number of people during the day is a challenge sometimes.
It's a
So,
great point.
and people will say, oh, you're rose-colored glasses, you're living in airy fairy. It's reality. It's reality that we have wars, hate, crime, whatever, all these things that are out there. No one's denying that they're out there. But I think with the power of the mind, from what I've been reading, we actually create our own reality.
100% we do. Our reality, there's no singular reality. Our reality is the summation of the things we choose to focus on. There's a powerful methodology inside of therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy. And I'll be real quick with this, but it basically breaks down the relationship between our thoughts, our emotions, and then our actions. And what's important to understand about that is our results, our reality, and the results we get are uh, because of the actions we take. That's not rocket science. You want to get in better shape, you eat healthier, you get more activity, you go outside more, you go to the gym, whatever that is, you know? So what gets in the way of those actions? The way people feel. They don't feel motivated. They don't feel committed. They don't feel like doing it. Well, our emotions are highly influenced by our beliefs and what we believe to be possible. If you don't think, if you don't believe that you can achieve the healthy lifestyle that you want, then you're almost doomed to failure right then. If you don't believe you can build a business, how many sales calls are you likely to make? So our belief system informs our emotions, which informs our action. And backing it up even further, our beliefs are influenced by our thoughts. We don't control what thoughts enter our brain, but we can control what thoughts we choose to pay attention to. And if a thought doesn't serve the ultimate destination we want to end up at, if you want to build a billion-dollar business or $100 million company, and you have thoughts like, okay, I need to take a part-time job making $20 an hour because you feel desperate or you're stuck in scarcity mode, then you are endangering your ultimate reality because you are taking action based on a thought that's inconsistent with what you're trying to create, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
choosing our thoughts, and even if you notice a thought, a limiting belief, you notice a thought, oh, the weather sucks. Now, the weather doesn't suck. There's no such thing as bad weather. There's weather that is conducive to certain things and weather that isn't. A coach that I know who served in the military, you talk about mindset. His quote is, "There's no such thing as poor weather, just poor weather choices." So you don't go for a run in -50 without good base layers and all your skin covered.
It comes down to, I was reading not too long ago, I think it was Mikhail Kingsbury, the moguls champ, right? And in an article, he uses the term, it's mental. You get to the Olympics and you're there and you've got maybe your top 20, and out of the top 20, anyone can win. It's a mental game, right? And so you've been in sports, you've worked in sports, and now you're working with executives, and this whole idea of winning, or where you put yourself. I don't mean really to say about the competition, but how you feel, the win you see for yourself, unleashing that potential. It really starts all in the mind, doesn't it?
100%. If you do go in that competitive lens, whether it's business, whether it's sports, whether it's music, or pick your industry, it's hard to beat someone who's already won in their own mind. And if this is the power of visualization, what's interesting is that your brain, most people's brains, can't tell the difference between a powerful visualization and reality. In other words, an Olympic athlete who's dreamed of standing on the podium with their medal, their brain has already experienced that. And our brains at the most primal level, they want to experience pleasure and avoid pain. So when we experience pleasure, our brain is looking at, how do we get there? Our brain is always curious, using those 100 billion neurons to, okay, this feels good. How do we get here? And it's reverse engineering pathways to get there again. That's why visualization is so powerful. Same thing with experiencing pain. Oh, this was terrible. I don't like this feeling. How do we get here? How do we avoid this in the future? So visualization is so powerful. And I actually saw a video recently about the power of visualization. There was a gymnast, an Olympic gymnast, going through their routine, and they were doing the moves before they even hit the bars. And when they were on the bars, you could see the coach doing the same thing. This coach was a former gymnast, and it was just the power of the mind to create those pathways to make it happen. So not just get clear on what you want, visualize what you want, and you will actually have a neurological advantage over your competition. Competition could be anyone, could be anything. I would say most people's competition is inaction. It's not that you're trying to win. I'm not trying to win against any other coach. I'm trying to compete with what will happen if I do nothing. I'm trying to compete with me being complacent or average.
I often think about what makes you feel better when I try to make a decision about something. Should I do something or not? And I go, it may make me crazy, make me nervous, fill me with fear, but I actually feel better if I move as opposed to not moving, because the not moving gets me nowhere. So
100%.
this brings me now, you work with executives, you still may work with athletes, but you're working with a lot of executives now. And some people kind of poo-poo visualization, affirmations as airy fairy, new age stuff, Eckhart Tolle, Tony Robbins, whatever it is. What about dollars and cents driven executives? Do you do visualizations with them?
For me, it's about whatever technique works.
Yes.
So, like you mentioned, I've worked with athletes, I've worked with executives. If somebody, let's use an example of something that feels a bit more tangible. If I'm working with someone who wants to get in better shape, lose weight, whatever the case may be, running is a great form of exercise and it would get them there. But if they absolutely hate running, then I wouldn't be a very effective coach by insisting they do that, even if running was the best exercise ever. If they won't do it, but they would swim or row or take a yoga class, well, I'd be a better coach by meeting them where they're at and offering alternatives that they're more likely to commit to. So in the example where people are very dismissive or look at that as way too outside of their belief system, then what I want to do is offer them alternatives that they're likely to select. So it's a famous, not famous, it's a very common expression in coaching: meet your client where they're at. And if someone is in that very doubtful or, state of disbelief, then the goal is to question and have them question their belief system to shift that 1, 2, 3%, so that now they can explore new possibilities that might work for them, that align with their view of the world. And the more we can stretch how they look at the world, the more opportunities, the more options they have at their disposal. Going back to living beliefs and belief systems, you're not going to take someone that says, I'm terrible at sales, to automatically believing they're the world's best salesperson. We have to work within what they would believe to be possible. Maybe that person still believes they're no good at sales, but they might agree that they're really good at opening relationships. And they could understand, well, that's massively valuable in sales. If you can open the relationship, someone else can come right behind you with the paperwork. Oh yeah, I could do that. And that's where we find the wins.
So right now, so there are so many different, you're going to meet the client where they're at. Could you still, though, in terms of unleashing their potential, helping people with their win, change their attitude, that mindset, what are 3 tips, if you could give just 3 simple things that anyone can start putting into practice? Because we have a lot of people out there starting their own business, wanting to move forward, but are held back by their limiting beliefs. So what are 3 things that generally people might be able to do right now, today, to help them move forward?
First thing I would say is get clear on what you want. Not just get clear on your goals, get clear on what you want. Those are different things. A lot of people, when it comes to setting their goals, they default knee-jerk response to the things they think we need. Oh, I want to make this much money. I want to have a bigger house. I want to drive a nicer car. And those are nice to have, absolutely, but those aren't necessarily what someone truly wants. If we get clear on what people want is to feel a certain way, is to live a certain way, is to be surrounded by the people they love and want to spend time with. And it's to learn certain things, do certain things, and to have certain freedoms. So if we get clear on what we actually want, then that'd be the first step. Second step would be come up with ideas of how to get there. And don't worry about how to get there in the first step. JFK didn't have a plan for how to get to the moon in 1961 when he gave his famous "We're going to the moon" speech. And just 8 years later, they landed on the moon. So if the US can come up with their space program and land a man on the moon in 8 years, by the way, a lot of people didn't want JFK to give that speech because what if they fail? They all look like failures. They are exposed. So the fact is, if people can figure out something that complex inside of 8 years, most of us have more than 8 years to achieve our biggest goals. You never know when your time is coming in life, but we don't need to get where we want to be yesterday or in 1 year. Think long term, get clear on what you want, and then don't negotiate with yourself. Don't say, oh, that's too big. I don't know how I would do that. Don't worry about how. Just come up with plans for how you might do it. And then the third step is take action. I totally agree with you. Taking action is better than inaction, even if you fail. Failure feels better than indecision. It's not fatal, because if you fail, all that means is the person you tried to sell your service to that hour said no. You still got 6 or 8 or 10 other hours that day, and however many hours that week. So every no you get is just a no in that moment in time. You're not a failure. Don't internalize it. Just get up and try something new. And even in the failure, there's benefit because we learn something. Remember, our brain wants to seek out pleasure and avoid pain. if we have an uncomfortable experience, our brain is quickly working towards why'd they say no? This sucked. How do I avoid this in the future? And maybe you walk away going, I didn't properly prepare for that sales call. I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know how to pitch my service to them. So automatically you're going back to the drawing board with a better plan, which means a better chance of success next time. Failure feels better than inaction. So get clear on what you want, figure out how to get there, get busy getting there.
Yeah. So in the end, do it. So for
Yes.
anybody, and I think that those are real great words of wisdom. Get clear on what you want. And I'm glad that you mentioned go beyond the money in the house. What is it in your heart's desire, which sometimes takes a bit of time, and think of all the ways. It's so easy to go, oh, well, no, that won't work. And then cut yourself off at the kneecaps, right?
Yes.
And just to go ahead and do it. And I'm going to say I've been a great one sometimes for planning. And then when it comes to putting it into action, oh, that's sometimes that's the challenge. You've had so many, your life is very storied and you've done so many things, had so many ventures, and still you decided to go and give a presentation on the TEDx stage. Why did you why did you think that was important when you already have accomplished so much? Why go and be a TEDx speaker?
Because it's not about me. You said it yourself at the top of the hour. I'm on a mission to help over 1 million people realize their potential. And to me, there was no better way to multiply my impact than a TEDx stage. A lot of times, no matter how hard I work, people can be hyper localized. Maybe people know me in Calgary, and that means I can help certain people, but I can't help people that I've never met if I don't find ways to expand my reach. So that was the number one reason I did it, to multiply my impact and to hope to help more people.
I can certainly see that. It was a very interesting talk that you gave. Again, we're talking about how the mind works, that the lasting happiness is an inside job. It doesn't come from outside, it comes from inside. And so you know that this is a message you were sharing with all the viewers. And I would imagine probably by now, with all the travels that you've done, all the speaking that you've done, if you haven't already hit your 1 million mark and impacting people, helping them tap into their potential, you've got to be very, very close.
Getting
From
there.
from the TED stage, speaking on the TED stage, what was your biggest learning experience? Because you spoke before. This is what isn't new for you. You are a consummate communicator, but was there a learning speaking from the TEDx stage?
Big time. And I owe it thanks to you. For those people in the audience that don't know, and they probably wouldn't know because you're humble, I actually hired Dorothea and a gentleman by the name of Roger to help me with my communication, with my speech, with how I articulate my ideas. And you were a phenomenal coach, often because you didn't tell me what I wanted to hear, you told me what I needed to hear. And I wanted that stage, I wanted that impact enough that I was hopefully all ears. Hopefully I was a sponge, and I know that you made me better. The suggestions, the way you challenged me, the way you shone a flashlight on what was really there. It was absolutely, I can say emphatically, my talk was a better talk, better delivered, thanks to you. And what I got out of the talk then, moving past that, because you're right, I gave a lot of talks before taking that stage in 2021. But what stuck with me beyond greater awareness of my presence and not doing movements just to do movements, being deliberate, was my preparation. I prepare for a talk differently now than I ever did before. And I can say emphatically that I'm a better, more concise, more effective speaker since that experience, thanks to you, than I was before.
Well, thank you so much for the compliment and also for the feedback. I think being concise, being clear, concision is something a lot of people have a challenge with because we have so much we want to say, and we forget sometimes that people can only take in so much information at a time.
100%. I think George Bernard Shaw said it the best, that the biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it's taken place in the first place. And the way I spin that is, when it comes to communication, it doesn't matter what I say. The only thing that matters is what the other person hears. So when it comes to being concise, it really comes down to what's getting through on the other side of the audience. This is your world. There's a lot of speakers that have so many ideas and they're so bright, but they just try to get it all out there. And in this case, more actually ends up being less because your audience leaves overwhelmed and they can't differentiate what were the key themes or ideas they should walk away with. So sometimes doubling down, tripling down on the main focus points and demonstrating your point well with stories and coming back there once in a while drives a singular point home better than, you know, data upon data.
And I think probably when it comes to communication, you do that. What would you say? I'm going to ask you a question first. What do you think is the biggest hurdle when it comes to being in terms of presenting ideas, not just on the TEDx stage, but maybe to potential clients, whatever, making a sale, giving a proposal? What do you think is the biggest hurdle to being an effective presenter, effectively communicating your ideas?
I think it's stepping outside of ourselves because we all have our own biases, our own ways of thinking, our own communicative style. So if we take a step backwards and ask ourselves, what am I trying to leave my audience with? They're going to leave the room when you're done speaking, hopefully not before. And so when they leave the room, how are they different? How is their perspective different? What have they learned? What have they decided upon? What have they changed their minds upon? What are they questioning? And in order to even answer that question, of course, we have to take into account who is our audience? Is it your executive team and you're presenting to your peers? Is it an audience at a convention or show? Is it your fans and you're on your social media account? If you know your audience and you know what they want, need, and what you hope to impart upon them, then you would change your delivery, you would change the way you approach it. And the last thing I would look at is you're experimenting.
Mhm.
The first two, what you want to communicate and who your audience are, you might be close, but there's still hypotheses, there's still assumptions. The only way to know is to launch, test, and iterate. You write a post on social media, that's still communication, and you get 14 impressions. And you try something else and you get 1,400 impressions. Well, why did this work and why didn't that work? It's a constant process of evolving your message and doing more of what's working and maybe less of what's not resonating with your audience. Same with great speakers. They send out surveys and they'll find out, well, why did this talk really resonate with my audience and why was this one a snooze fest?
And I think the key here is that if you want to be an effective communicator, whether you're on the TEDx stage, presenting in a work environment, at a convention, or just having a chat with somebody over a cup of coffee, ultimately what it is, it's just working to make a connection to see what clicks with the other person and where the two of you can meet. I think the other thing here, it's an ongoing exploratory affair. Even when it comes to getting along with family, maybe you wake up in the morning and somebody's upset about something. You go in to work and somebody's upset about something. And instead of getting into reactive mode right away, well, oh, what a clown, what a jerk, whatever, you're an idiot, you never care, whatever, all these comments that we make is to explore and see how we can open the door to a communication. And that also then applies to us, how we respond and what we're going to do. I wasn't very concise there in saying that, but nevertheless, I think the key here is to just know that you're exploring all the time. And I find sometimes with people who do a lot of speaking, they don't want to explore. They're not curious enough to think, well, how can I make this be better? How can I do it differently? Who am I speaking to? What is the message I want to leave? Why do I want to leave that message? And yeah, so I think it's curiosity, going back to what you started with. To be effective at anything requires curiosity. To be a great communicator requires curiosity. That
I
TEDx.
would add, I completely agree, and I would add humility. People that are too married to their own ideas lack the ability to question their own thinking. Don't believe everything you think. That's important to keep that in mind. And any leader that is humble enough to have their ideas questioned is a leader who stands to learn something. And when the people I learned from, the real experts out there, they're still learning. And if John Maxwell, after reading how many books, or Marshall Goldsmith, or you mentioned Tony Robbins, if those Marsha Reynolds, if those people are still learning and still questioning, when they have how many New York Times bestsellers and they've sold millions of programs out there, if they're still questioning and learning, I have no right to be too set in my ways.
Wonderful wisdom for us all. Before we wrap up, as a coach, what do you see as your strongest skills? I think we've already heard you express what you think your attributes are, but just to kind of as a wrap up here, as an executive coach, what do you think are your strengths, the strengths that people appreciate from you when you're working with them?
Well, we already mentioned curiosity, and I think curiosity is a superpower, especially for coaches. But that curiosity is hard to have unless you truly care. If you're bored out of your mind, you're not going to be very curious. So it's important to truly care and actually have an affinity for your audience. I truly want to help the people that I'm in front of. I don't work with jerks, and I know what it's like to be in leadership. I know what it's like to be an entrepreneur. I know what it's like to be trying to grow a business. There's a ton of challenges, and there's a lot of people that are doing that because they really want to help other people. So I really want to help them. Care comes first, in my opinion, which leads to being present. I'm not over here checking my watch, wondering what's up, Googling something else when I'm in a coaching session. Like, I am here, and someone gets me and I get them, and there's nothing else going on in my universe while I'm with a client. And that care and that presence allows the curiosity. And the two other things I would say is, coming from that presence and curiosity, it allows me to ask great questions, which is a way better way to have great conversations than to be smarter than my clients. I'm not smarter than my clients. And the last piece I would say is, I hold people accountable. When we go through our coaching process and people come to conclusions, their perspective is shifted, they've got new ideas, new goals, new strategies, then I hold them accountable. When we meet the next week, I ask them what they've gotten to based on the commitments they've made to themselves and to me, and we have a conversation about it. Big difference between accountability and giving someone in trouble, but it's important that we hold people accountable, because the highest performers that I've ever worked with, the professional athletes, the Olympians, the most powerful executives, they look at accountability as following through on the promises you make to yourself and others. That's a healthy way to look at accountability, and it's a cornerstone of high performance.
Great reasons why people like working with you as a successful coach. And my last question here is in terms of being a power partner, having received that coveted award, the Power Partner from Inc. magazine. What does that mean, a power partner? Because listening to you right now as a coach, I can feel and sense the power, and I can see and understand the word of partner. But what is the Power Partner Award?
So the Power Partner Award, again, thank you to Inc. magazine, is given to companies that they feel are true B2B rock stars. In other words, the companies that they feel are really helping other companies succeed, given for communicators. It could be technologies, it could be consulting companies like ours. So what I love about that award is it's a true testament to my co-founders and our coaching team, our finance team, our marketing team, our team that helps those in the sports sector, because everyone on our team truly cares and truly wants to help the individuals and organizations we work with. So being recognized by Inc. magazine is a true testament to our team that we are here to serve our customers. And that's why that award is so special to us, because anyone can go get individual accolades, of which my co-founders and team have a plenty, and I've got a few as well. But when we achieve that as a team, that means we're really doing something special for the people we care about. So that's why that award means so much to us.
You have an amazing website, and I've met a few members of your team, and they're amazing as well. Is there anything before we wrap up that you'd like to share with the audience out there right now, Stan, before we go?
Yeah, FSQ exists because the world needs better leaders. That's what we do. Less than 10% of the world's leaders are considered values-based leaders, those that can actually intentionally combine the ideology of an organization with the way to get profit, the tactical strategy. So we help people understand the business side of the business, the financial side. We help people tell their story, and we help people find their purpose and actually help fulfill it. So those are who we want to help. We're always looking for great new team members to join the cause. And we're always looking for entrepreneurs and leaders who want more from their current reality. And they're struggling, not necessarily struggling in their business, but they just don't know how to take that next step to get closer to their vision or purpose. So that's who we'd love to work with. And right now, we're doing a launch of our online leadership development program. So if people are curious, I'd love to field questions. And I'd love to even throw a few books your way to throw out to your audience as you see fit.
Okay, well, thank you. What does FSQ stand for?
It stands for Forget Status Quo.
Forget Status Quo Consulting. How
Yeah.
cool is that? FSQ Consulting, everybody. And thank you so much. Always looking for leadership. And what I really love here and speaking with you, and you've given me, it makes me feel so good inside to know that what you're doing is giving business a better name. So many people just think it's dog eat dog. Business is out to get you. Somebody's going to screw you. And what you're doing here and working with leaders is changing that entire look. How cool.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. So here, if you want to tap into your potential, your business to tap into its potential and be one of the millions of people that Stan Peake is going to impact, by all means, contact Stan at FSQ Consulting, Inc. Thanks so much, Stan, for being a guest today. This is Dorothea Hendriks, wishing everyone mountains of success.
Thank you.